In today's episode, I'll be giving my review and reaction for the 1979 film The Deer Hunter. The Deer Hunter is an epic war drama with a runtime of 3 hours and 4 minutes, directed by Michael Cimino. I've never seen any Michael Cimino films, so this is my first of his that he has directed or been really worked on. This movie stars Robert De Niro, John Cazale, John Savage, Meryl Streep, and Christopher Walken. So let's dive right into The Deer Hunter. Do something, man. People are questioning you. Shut up. Shut up. Okay, yep, do that. Sure, guys. Stupid and dumb. Just an idiot. Get your shit together, son. Fuck it. I loved it. Welcome to the DubCast. Coming into The Deer Hunter, I was, as always with movies, I'm hoping for a good watch, expecting to be pleased with the outcome, hopefully give it 4 to 5 stars on Letterboxd. I don't understand why this movie was hyped up at all. Honestly, I'd never heard of this movie before it was recommended. Gave it a shot, 3 hours. Wish I could have had that time back, man. I do think this movie, to speak to the positive aspects of it, I think it's semi-impressive that this movie did come out in 1979, as, feels like a lot of the films I end up liking are mid-2000s, and I know there were movies out during the 40s and 50s, but for the 70s, I don't know if that's really my favorite couple of years of film, but I guess this is a pretty impressive piece for something that came out over like 25 years ago, so there's that. I thought this movie went on for way too long. 3 hours and 4 minutes is just a ridiculous runtime for what this movie was. We did not need that amount of time to provide the story of this movie, in my opinion. I think, a side note for y'all looking at this, I think Christopher Walken aged pretty poorly in comparison to Robert De Niro. Looking at this movie, where it looks like Robert De Niro is like 10 years older than Christopher Walken. Turns out they're only a year apart. But looking at Robert De Niro now and Christopher Walken now, I mean, it's not like a bad aging. Christopher Walken just looks pretty old, in my opinion. Like, I don't know. I don't think Robert De Niro looks that old. Like, Robert De Niro looks like he's, I don't know. Just a little bit thing I noticed there. I think they're both in their 80s. So, anyways, I feel like this plot feels a little bit lost on where we actually should be focused on, as there's sort of the 3 different acts of the film that are all kind of focusing on different ideas. You have the friend group at the beginning, which I never really cared that much about. The Vietnam aspect, which felt like a flash in the pan. The roulette games, which I think was like the major focus of the movie. And then the deer hunting, which this movie being called The Deer Hunter, I think is pretty interesting, considering that there's only really 2 or 3 hunts throughout the movie, and we don't really get a lot of content of them actually hunting a deer. So thought that was an interesting choice to name this movie. And then I just thought the focus was too spread out between all these different like sort of themes and ideas they're trying to run at you. It's like none of them really stick, so it just made for a poor outcome, in my opinion. Like I mentioned before, like none of these themes stood out to me besides maybe the Vietnam and roulette game. Those are the ones that seemed the strongest, but the Vietnam one felt like a very small fraction of the movie. The roulette game, it was fun, it was interesting, it was a different dynamic, but that was also like introduced into the second half and then like only later on in the movie. So those are the only ones that really stood out to me, kept my attention, or grabbed me and kept me there. Like the fucking wedding at the beginning, dude. Oh my god, it's fucking ugh. I think most of this movie was a slog to get through, unfortunately. The Vietnam, like I said before, was the most interesting, but it just felt like a blur in comparison to everything else that happens throughout the movie. Like, I feel like we're at that fucking rushing wedding for the first hour of the movie. It's like nobody really cares about what's happening here. I mean, I don't. That just felt like boring fodder to me. People in the TV time comments were a little bit agreeing with me, some were disagreeing, but it's what every movie nowadays. Everyone's either half the people are like this is a classic, or everyone's like this was boring as shit. I'm on the boring side of this movie, to be honest. Unfortunately, I'm sorry if there's people out there who love this movie. I thought the ending was a strong point of the movie. I wasn't being too surprised that Nick does end up shooting himself, but I can appreciate them trying to make that kind of a shock value thing, and then also taking a risk like that, killing one of your main two or three, at least probably at least top three characters in the movie, from a like a context point of view. I think this movie does lack proper setup, like I mentioned before, for a bunch of storylines, which sounds absurd to say given the runtime is 3 hours and 4 minutes, which I know, sometimes cinema is cinema, but that felt like a pretty long runtime for what this was. And with that runtime, you don't get a lot of setup into the characters. Like, we don't really know much about our main characters, but outside of Robert De Niro's character, which his story is like pretty streamlined into the Vietnam stuff. So I thought this movie lacked proper setup. Like, questions we needed answers. Why did Nick become an addict in the roulette games and send money to Steve, but then pretend to or legitimately not know who Michael was? Why did Michael not kill the deer the second time around? There's just a lot going on that confused me in this movie, especially towards the end of the movie. I thought Stern's character was a good comic relief. That's another positive note throughout the film. He was probably my favorite, even though he's kind of a scumbag and canceled for some of the things he did during this movie and said. So I will put that out there, but I thought his character was an interesting add to the movie, and I appreciated the comedy he provided. Robert De Niro's performance, when I think about Robert De Niro, I'm not going to think about this performance at all. I think it was a fine performance overall, but not something I would bring up in a top 5 conversation or a top 10 conversation for any characters I've seen him play. I feel like there's way more that you can just think right off the bat. Like, I don't even know if this is top 15 or top 10 for Robert De Niro, unfortunately. I don't know. I didn't think this was like an inspiring performance necessarily. Christopher Walken's character, I also thought fell pretty flat for me. I didn't really empathize with his character at all, since he felt like mostly a side character throughout, didn't feel like a main part of the story. The love interest storyline I thought was really weird, and are we supposed to be rooting for Michael to get with Linda even though Nick is already dating her? Like, I thought this was atrocious, the love story stuff, man. Oh, I mean, I've been a critic of some of the love interests on the movies I reviewed, but this was especially bad. Like, she's already with who we're supposed to be, like I just said, we couldn't really empathize with Nick, but we're supposed to be on, like, maybe you shouldn't cheat on or make your best friend's girlfriend cheat on him with you. Like, and there's a weird relationship dynamic. I didn't really understand what was going on with this. So I didn't really like that aspect between them both. And then they kind of just give him like one sex scene and that's it. Like, I thought that was really weird. Although that's like, I get it. It's Michael's like thing when he comes back from Vietnam is to be with Linda, but it's like, I don't know, dude. I thought that was a pretty weak storyline. And we can't even tell who does she actually like. Like, she's with Nick for the first half of the movie, and then all of a sudden Mike comes back from the war and she's like, all right, I'm just gonna bang you for one night. The fuck, man. More confusing, and it felt like just another thing they threw in there to try and make something stick. The 2 deer hunting scenes we got, like I mentioned before, didn't do much for me, and I'm surprised this movie is called The Deer Hunter, as though it's the least involved storyline of the movie. The shots of the wilderness, the brief ones we did get, I thought were respectable for the time this was filmed. I do enjoy some scenics in my movies, so I will say the scenics they had were pretty nice, although sparse. I may also be upfront and have bias out there. I may have Vietnam fatigue, as I feel like every war movie I've seen is just a Vietnam movie, especially recently, and that could cause bias and me being sick of these storylines. Overall, I wouldn't recommend this movie to many people. I thought this was mostly a major waste of time. There are small aspects that boost it up from being a terrible movie. Overall, I'm letting this movie at a 5.6. Just didn't move the needle, didn't do anything, didn't make me feel anything, didn't really think about this movie after I finished it. I was just glad to be done with it. Not going to recommend this, not going to go back to this one ever. In my opinion, too long of a storyline, too many things thrown in there that they were trying to make like something stick and nothing really stuck. So 5.6 for The Deer Hunter. So let's compare this amongst the other movies we reviewed so far on the DubCast. So this is movie number 60 so far on the channel / cast. Comes in at number 55, so pretty bottom down the line right there at number 55. Comparing this to the other Vietnam movies we have on the list, we have Good Morning Vietnam. Obviously beats this out. That was a 6.7. Same with American Gangster, an 8.1. So lowest Vietnam movie so far. Comparing it to the other Robert De Niro movies we have on the list, we have Awakenings, which was a 7.4, and Backdraft, which is a 7.6, so the lowest Robert De Niro movie on the list. And you guessed it, also the lowest Christopher Walken movie on the list. Dune was a 9.0, Dune Part 2, I believe, and then Man on Fire, 7.3. So really, this will be used in future graphics to propel other movies, because I don't foresee this, you know, being have a lot of movies coming in below it, because I'm a pretty positive reviewer. This one just like did nothing for me. So that's where we leave off with the Dubcast graphics. So now let's get into my thoughts and reactions throughout the film. Starting it off, I think this movie, I didn't write it down, but I do always like to talk about the beginning of the movie. I think this right off the bat you're bored because they throw a freaking 10-minute like credit scene at you right when you're starting the movie. It's like, I know it's the 70s. I'm probably over complaining, but get us right into the action, man. And they do put us, after we get every actor and every person who worked in Switzerland to help edit this movie. Finally, we get to the action. People are working in a factory and they see a ring around the sun, which is going to be a great omen for their hunting trip. Like I mentioned before, like, what does this mean when the deer aren't even in the fucking movie? You're not even in the wilderness for most of the movie. This is a quote unquote, what was the description of this movie? An epic war drama. This isn't even about fucking deer. So I thought this was really, like, looking back on this now, I like to, go and analyze the beginning of the movie, see if it means anything. Stupid. I thought this was a stupid intro to the movie. And it's like, oh, we're like hanging with the boys, and we're gonna go out and drink beers, and we're just like a bunch of shitheads who work at a factory, but we hunt on the weekends. It's like, some of the characters were likable, some of the moments were okay, but it's like, I don't know. I don't like the opening of this movie. So the boys are all together, and they all, like, throughout the whole movie, they all cram into Michael's car, which is like a standard 5-person car, and they have to cram into there. I don't know if that was the thing you did in the 70s. I've been told I'm tone deaf on the 70s and the 80s movies. I just don't understand what's going on. So take everything you hear on the Dubcast with a grain of salt. My bad for fucking trying to analyze something. God. So anyways, they're in the car, and their big stunt on the highway is passing a truck on the inside and just damaging the shit out of your car. Which this, like, I feel like these guys were supposed to be like young 20s, like we're going to drink and be idiots on a Friday night. But it's like these guys, one of the guys is getting married. They're like, felt like Robert De Niro looked like 35 in this movie. He was like 35 in this movie, pushing 30 at least. So I don't know. I thought this was stupid of them, like trying to pass a car on the inside and just scraping the shit out of your car. I guess like guys are shitheads, right? So that's funny, and it's the 70s. Maybe I'm just not understanding. But thought that was a stupid scene. So we learn one of the boys is getting married, and he gets they're at the bar together, this bar that they essentially own. I did respect that part of it, where they just walk in and like, we're making drinks, so like, we're drinking here, deal with it, to the owners. They must have like a pass to do that. I'm not gonna nitpick too much there. So one of the boys is getting married. I believe it's Steve who's getting married, and his wife's mother, or one of the Russian women he's marrying into a Russian woman. I guess these people were all fucking Russians too. Like, I read the description on TV Time, and it's like a bunch of like Russian. Let me pull it up if I can. I don't have my phone here. Nonetheless, I don't know. I didn't get the sense that we were supposed to think that they were Russians, but I mean, it is a Russian wedding. I thought just because the woman was Russian, I don't know. But this Russian woman comes and gets him from the bars. Like, you're getting married tonight. Maybe you should like not be at the bar, which is a good idea from her. So yeah, we get back. Everyone's preparing for the wedding. We meet, or more in depth, with our two main characters, Nick and Mike, and they have this little convo back and forth about killing a deer, and they say a deer has to be taken with one shot to his pussy. I wrote this down because I thought it meant something. It doesn't really mean something. One of them like mentions one shot later on, but this doesn't really come to pass as like an important line, at least to me. Maybe I'm missing, like, if there's people out there who are actually watching this review and you're this far in, and like you're like, this is one of my favorite movies of all time, and you're just shitting down it, write in the comments what I'm missing with this movie, because I feel like I'm off base. Like, I must be missing something here. I don't know. So yeah, one shot is what you need to do. If you kill a deer with two shots, that's pussy. I don't know if I describe it as pussy. That's just, I mean, I'm an animal advocate. I hate the idea of a deer dying and then no one like will put it out of its misery, or like that stuff just gives me the chills. I don't like dealing with that stuff. So I agree. If you're gonna kill a deer, kill it with one shot. Don't do it two. Poor deer has to suffer even more. And I fucking hate deer also, by the way, because they just feel like they got bold, and they're fucking in the way of roads all the time. And it's like, guys, you have multiplied over the years. It's like we're losing all the important animals in the world, but freaking deer and bunnies are going to run this planet in like 200 years. So many of them. And road there where I live, it's all the roadkill is all deer on the side of the road because they run in the highway like idiots. So fuck the deer. Kill them with one shot though, because I hate to see a suffering deer that does pull at the heartstrings. Nonetheless, moving on. So the Russian wedding scene, like I mentioned before, thought this was a very boring scene. Just went on for too long. Like we're in like a dance line for like 10 minutes. It's like we don't really care about these characters. Like we don't even know these people yet. So what do we care if they're dancing their hearts away? Like for example, I just watched Andor season 2, and Mon Mothma is like, after she goes through a bunch of shit, she's like dancing drunk, and like that's a scene that means something because she's like dancing her problems away and suffering in her body and with the rich and elite people. These people are just dancing for the fuck of it. Like I don't care about these people. So I thought the Russian wedding scene was one of the most boring scenes of the movie. Just nothing going on there really. It's not even like an interesting wedding at all. Until later on, there are some things that start happening. So Michael, I guess everyone in the 70s and during this time would just like switch off dance partners. I don't think that's too uncommon, so I'm not going to depict that. But Michael takes takes Nick's woman, Linda. I thought right from the bat, you see him trying to steal her here. It was weird. Like he pulls her to the side and they're just hanging out. Maybe it seems like they are good friends, so whatever. But it's like she's with Nick and you're just like at the bar with her for like half an hour. I don't know. Like I mentioned before, I thought this was a stupid relationship. She gets him a beer. I will say I'm surprised to see Rolling Rock around the song. I didn't really know what Rolling Rock was until one night in the queue. So it was a Wednesday night and I just bought Rolling Rocks for college and said fuck it. Not the greatest beer in the world, but that's cool that that's been around that long. I feel like I don't know many of these legacy beer companies, who's been around and who hasn't been around. So yeah, excited to see Rolling Rock still. I mean, that's one of the positives of this first hour of the movie. So Nick, once he gets Linda back from Michael, who's been dancing and hanging out with her for hours, implies marriage, asking if she would marry him. Now, this could be something you could look back on after the conclusion of the movie and be like, oh my god, they could have got married, they could have been together forever. But even then, if Nick did come back, she was with Michael, so wasn't going to happen, wasn't in the cards because Michael's a scumbag. Moving on, the wedding happens and the boys are going crazy again. It's like, we're dumb shitheads, and Michael runs off naked after the wedding. I don't really know what scene was meant to be. It's like, okay, you're naked and fun, have a good time, I guess. So they're on the hunting trip. Michael kills a deer and they run back to the bar from the beginning of the movie once again. Just feel like we're just going places and doing things and having fun because it's the 70s and we're the boys, and I don't know, these guys need to like find women, and I say that as a person who's never been in a relationship. Guys, get a job, do something. Like this can't be what we're doing here. I mean, I don't know what was happening. So no transition at all. Now we're just in Vietnam. They had alluded before that maybe they were going to be part of the war. I wrote, now we're finally in Vietnam. Maybe it was alluded to before a lot, but I don't know. This movie just one ear out the other. Like, processed it. It's shit movie. Moving on. But here I am doing a fucking review for it. Nonetheless. So we're in Vietnam. Michael is here injured. We don't see what really causes the injury. And we see a guy from the Vietnam side, probably that was supposed to interpret, put a grenade in a cellar full of children. So this felt like they're just going from 0 to 100 real quick to like lock you in, but it's like there was no transition and like nothing leading up to this, and then all of a sudden we're just watching children die in a cellar due to a grenade. It's fucked up. I agree with you, but like, I don't. Okay, we're here now. We're in Vietnam, I guess. So they're now full prisoners of war. They're in this kind of weird water jail cell where people above them are forced to play Russian roulette. And this is the introduction of the Russian roulette game, and that importance that game has over the rest of this movie. As we see, Steve has to like go and play, and then eventually Nick and Mike have to go play. So one of the only respectable scenes in this movie, and maybe this is where Black Ops One got their plot from. You know, you're playing as Mason in Woods. They use the Russian roulette to kill the people around them. So that maybe that was their idea, but they got that from this movie, where Nick pulls the that plot and uses the Russian roulette game to kill the people surrounding the table. They escape out of there. Um, they do grab Steve. You know, Steve was struggling a lot in this scene where he's been like clearly traumatized. Clearly, he's gone through a lot in the war, and Michael's like trying to help him, but he's out of it. So Michael's not really able to help him as much as he tries to help him, but it's really not going well. So they're able to escape. They flag down a helicopter. They're able to get out of there, but Steve falls off the helicopter, and Michael swims after him. So good guy Michael going to save his friend. And then we see them swim onto the shore, and Steve has like a Kevin Ware type injury, the bone sticking out of the leg. Oh, that was a tough one to watch. Nasty ass leg injury. Yeah, I didn't like to see that from Steve. Poor guy. So now they're kind of out of the main problem in Vietnam. They're in like the Good Morning Vietnam section of it where they're just like hanging out in the hospital. They're like all the American type bars, all the like prostitutes, all the weird stuff that goes on in like military taking over towns in Vietnam. So Nick is walking around. You know, he's at the hospital. I don't know what his specific injuries were, but it seems like maybe a mental health problem. I don't know. He was just hanging out in the hospital. So he walks into more people playing this Russian roulette game for money, which is, I guess, a weird bet that they would do. I don't know if this was factually accurate or not. I didn't see any indication from this movie that this was based off a true story. I don't think it was based off a true story. So I can, that's my signal to go after the plot when it's not based on a true story. But I don't know. I'm sure this game, there had to be some semblance of this game out in Vietnam that made them want to make this movie and make this seem impactful. So Nick is walking into more people playing this game. You throw money on the person, and then whoever ends up shooting themselves in the head, the other side wins the money, which is a crazy game to play. I mean, I know there's like adrenaline junkies out there, but you're risking your whole fucking life. It's like, I don't know. I would definitely would not play this game for money. So of course, who's in the crowd? Also there, Michael. Seems like they kind of had somewhat of a semi falling out where they're like didn't know where each other were, didn't really care where each other were until they're here together at this roulette game. So Nick is like having probably some PTSD I'd classified as, where he walks into this game, he sees them playing again, and this reminds him of when he had to go through that hard time with Michael just before in the war, when the Vietnamese were playing the game and making him play the game, and then he had to kill him. So he grabs the gun, shoots at someone, doesn't hit, and then pulls the trigger on himself, doesn't hit. Luckily, Nick is alive, doesn't kill an innocent person as well. Then he just runs away. So these scenes are like very, I don't know if fleeting's the right word, but it's like we're here and then we're just gone on to the next scene. I don't know. It's like, okay, he runs away, and then Michael's going back to the U.S. Like, I don't know. I felt like the transition scenes were pretty bad, if they even existed at all. So Michael's back at his welcome home party. Now this part was also semi-realistic, where he didn't really want to see the people. He just went through all this war, and they're gonna be like, "Oh, welcome back," and like drink beers and stuff. So he'd rather just drive right by it. But he does reveal his wallet here, which has a picture of Linda in it. Terrible stuff that he's just simping for this girl this whole time. I mean, it's a tough situation if your boy is with her, but I feel like we could have handled that better. And also having the picture in the wallet confirms he's still into her, and especially after Nick got with her. So once again, I'm criticizing Michael for this. It's too much. Come on, bro. So Michael, instead of going back to his welcome home party, comes back the next day and walks Linda to work. This is like what I was talking about earlier, kind of his like seemingly what he wanted when he come back from the war, hang out with Linda. Like, this is his reason to live, basically. And then instead of living or staying at his home, they sleep in a motel together. I don't know. It's weird. It's supposed to be like platonic friends at this point, but I get it. Michael needs to get out of his house and whatever, but it's just like, why are we doing this? I didn't like this love storyline at all. So the boys, minus Nick, go on another hunting trip. They don't know when Nick's gonna be back, so we gotta move on with regular life. Michael has his second confrontation with a deer. He can shoot it. Instead, shoots above it, and then just keeps chanting "okay" into a waterfall. I thought if this was a depiction of PTSD, just a really weird PTSD depiction, I don't want to be too critical of that. But I thought that was a weird scene of him just yelling "okay" into a waterfall. He's like "okay, okay," and just screaming into the waterfall. Okay. So Michael gets upset when he comes back to the cabin and sees Stan has a little handgun. He's mad at Stan for bringing a gun when they have hunting rifles. Brother. But no, it was weird of Stan to bring a little minigun, or not minigun, handgun. And then he Russian roulettes a chamber onto Stan, which is a crazy thing to do to your boys. I mean, what was the culture at this time? It's like, fuck it. Like, if we get shot, who cares? Like, Michael could have just committed a murder. I mean, granted, Stan's not really taking the situation seriously, but he could have just killed Stan right there. Poor Stan, I thought that was fucked up. Michael crash out. Maybe you can blame PTSD. I don't know if maybe that's the like layer I'm missing is like this is all just PTSD, but it's like, is it though? So that's that. We get back to Michael's house and him and Linda share a kiss. Least favorite scene in the movie. Thought this was a weak storyline. Thought this was a weak sort of conclusion to the storyline. I didn't like this at all. This romance between Linda and Steve. Fuck that. I've gone on for too long, so we'll move on. Steve, from earlier on, one of the boys who got married, had that tough go of it in Vietnam, has lost both of his legs, and he's in the Veterans Hospital. Mike, good guy Mike, actually good guy Mike, calls him and then visits him. So we find out this is where Nick's been sending Steve money every month, and then Michael's like, stop being a bitch and staying at the Veterans Hospital. Your wife misses you. Go home. Which, probably just needed a push, so that was probably fair enough for Michael. Where Nick was getting this money, he's been playing the roulette game. It's probably obvious if he's in Vietnam and just making dead dough. So I don't know how you like even if you think of like sports gambling, or it's like, okay, I've done research, I know where everything's gonna go. How the fuck could you know when they're gonna pull a chamber? Like, there's no way you're like rolling in dough, and this game could be like a potential moneymaker for you. Like, I don't understand that. It's just a game of 50-50 chance, essentially, because there's 6 rounds in the chamber. Each person's gonna have to pull the gun 3 times. It's like, the fuck, man. I don't know how you like become a freaking sharp at betting against roulette games. Nonetheless, though, I guess Nick's made a fortune over there. Respectable. Sending it to Steve, a person in need. So Mike is still at home. Nick is still not made it home. So Mike's like, fuck it, I'm going to go back and find him. He goes and finds him at the roulette game, and Nick doesn't recognize him. I thought this was a really weird scene because we don't understand why Nick would not recognize him at all. We don't pick up at all between Nick, but by the time he shot the gun at himself and then ran out into now, we don't have any scenes with him really. So Mike finding him here, doesn't know him, and now Nick is playing against the Vietnamese person in the game, so potentially his life could be on the line. Mike says, fuck it, I'll play against you, which also another thing I didn't mention in my overall review, I didn't understand this scene at all, where Mike's like, let me play against you, because one of you guys is going to fucking die. That's the point of the game. But Nick, although despite seemingly not remembering Michael at all, does remember the one shot saying of one shot is good, 2 shots is pussy. Let me see what the actual quote was. It has to be taken with 1 shot, 2 is pussy. So Nick drops that line. So he did remember. I guess he's just fucked in the head now. Maybe PTSD. I'm just going to write everything up to PTSD. So Nick shoots himself in the head. Sad scene to watch, and they don't, I know this movie is rated R, but they don't hold back on you when the people shoot themselves in the head. Like, we see the blood and everything. So tough to see Nick go down, man. Sad into his story, but I feel like we didn't really get the proper context for that to matter that much, in my opinion. We have a 3-hour movie, we didn't really spend that much time with Nick, so it was what it was. Thought this story took kind of a weird twist and turn with the message they were trying to display. So R.I.P. to Nick. Mike's right there in front of him. Luckily, though, when we head back to the U.S., they do have a nice funeral for him, and they sing a song and cheers to him, and that's the end of the movie. There it is, The Deer Hunter. I do like the credits, though, when they show someone doing something and then show their name. I think that's always hype when you have, like, the intros, when it's, like, the DubCast, something like that. So I did like the ending of the credits. Yeah, I thought this movie was mostly boring, misdirection like, not to destroy the plot, but it's like I don't really know what the plot of this movie, what we were supposed to get from this movie. Just like people from Vietnam have PTSD and sometimes shoot themselves in the head playing a game against other Vietnamese people. I don't know. I was saying Vietnamese. I don't know. Finished this movie in all honesty 6 days ago. Haven't thought about it once since, besides the fact that I'm going to make this review. Didn't leave any impact on me. Thought all the storylines were pretty weak. Didn't really care about any of the characters. So yeah, I'm gonna stop crapping on this movie. I just didn't like it. Did you guys love it? And that's the reason why you're watching this movie. I'd love to hear what you thought was great about this movie. You know, I think Joker Folie à Deux is the lowest, Folie à Deux, I don't know what it is the lowest movie on my list. And someone commented they love it, think it's the best movie of 2024. Okay, like, I love it. Then they explained why. You know, everyone's allowed to have their own opinion. This movie was not for me. So personally, I wouldn't recommend this movie, but if you guys loved it, let me know down below why you did. So that's going to wrap up the Deer Hunter. This is going to be actually the last podcast I release while I'm out on vacation, so I won't be seeing this, or I won't be seeing the comments right away, but I will respond when I'm back from vacation. I have a couple videos prepared. We had Andor Season 2 released earlier in the week. You Season 5 released early in the week. More content on the way. UFC 316 should be either next week or the week after, by the time this is out. NBA Finals should be soon. Shit's happening. I've watched a couple movies by the time I'm back. Dark Season 1, that's going to be a long review. I have a lot to say about that show. It's a crazy show. Besides that, I mean, Bear Season 4 is coming out. There's shit coming out all the time. So expect more reviews, expect more movie reviews, expect more TV shows reviews, expect sports. It's all happening here in the DubCast. So appreciate you sticking this long, staying until the end. I'll leave y'all at that. And as always, one shot, two shots is pussy. Be easy, y'all.